the fog splits, and an orca mother rams her calf against a human dock, then hovers like a sentry. "Do you want my help?" Evan whispers. The water answers with a breath, not a roar. Predator begging, a silent bargain. As bioluminescence ignites the bay, one blink turns the night into a dare. The bay held its breath before dawn, a blue quiet cupped by cedar slopes and cloud. Evan stepped from his liveaboard into the chill, boots thudding softly on the floating dock. Lantern light pooled near his hands, honey over worn planks. Beyond the glow, the inlet was a single dark pane that swayed and clicked against the fenders. He had learned the metronomes here. The buoy bell answering the swell, the rope's wet creak, his own inhalations counting the dark. Somewhere a gull turned in its sleep. Somewhere a seal rolled and vanished. Beneath the dock, a faint curling of phosphorescence traced the pull and push of water, as if stars had slipped under the skin of the bay and kept breathing there. He left the boathouse door ajar the way habit had taught him. An open hinge for morning, for weather, for whatever the tide brought. He checked the cleats, the lines, the dinghy chafe. He liked the work's ordinary grammar, Titan coil stow. "Easy," he said to no one. Then to himself with a short laugh, "Easy, Evan, breathe." Steam from his mug drifted like a ghost over the rail. In the fog, sound travelled strangely, swelling and then thinning to thread. He lifted the lantern, let it circle, widen toward the ladder that dipped into black. A soft exhalation reached him, wet, rounded, brief, like the sea releasing a secret. Evan stilled. The buoy bell knocked once. He listened, counting without numbers. "Morning," he offered the water, half a ritual, half a dare. "No surprises today." He did not move. The inlet did not answer. But the dock shifted its weight as a low swell slid under, and the phosphorescence ached a brighter line along the boards. He felt it then, a prickle that climbed from knuckle to neck, the sense of something awake beyond the light, measuring the distance to him, and to the door he had left open quietly. The sound came again, closer, rounder, a breath shaped like a bell struck underwater. A dark back rose through the skin of the bay, glossy as oiled stone, followed by a fin that cut cleanly through the fog. The orca mother surfaced beside the float, exhaled a plume that drifted into the lantern's fringe and then dipped, easing forward with a deliberate shove. Pressed against her shoulder was a smaller body, the calf's flank shivering, its breaths uneven. Pale sunrise began to thin the night. The cedar slopes took on edges. The dock's rubber fenders showed their scuffed grey faces. The mother angled, guiding the calf toward that soft boundary where human world met water. Phosphorescence ribboned along her wake, curls of green fire unspooling as if she were writing in a language the dock might understand. The calf glanced off a ladder rung with a dull clank and gave a small, torn squeal. Evan flinched. Reflex pushed him toward the boathouse door, toward the habit of shutting the hinge and waiting it out. He had been taught the rules: distance, caution, don't turn your back on power. "Easy," he said, a breath more than a word. "Easy, easy." The mother kept a precise perimeter, no closer than a few meters, her body on the arc that would intercept any wrong move. She rolled half on her side, and for a heartbeat, an eye cleared the surface. Dark, reflective, steady. It did not read as hunger or challenge. It read as measurement. It held him, let him see himself small in that black glass, and then slipped away again. "Are you asking me?" Evan whispered to the water, startled by his own voice. The buoy bell ticked once to mark the question. The calf, exhausted, nosed the rubber fender, slid back, pushed again. Each time the mother checked, nudged, reset, never ramming, never rushing. Her blows were soft, close, rhythmic, sentences ending in steam. Bioluminescent swirls lit each turn the mother made, a ring of cold fire around the dock. The fog lifted a fraction. Colour returned to the planks and to Evan's hands. He could see the calf's eye now, glassy but open, the jaw quivering with the effort to breathe and float and try again. "This isn't a hunt," he said, surprising himself with certainty. "This is a handover." He stepped once to the edge, then stopped, palms raised in view. "I see you. I see the line. I won't cross without your say." The mother levelled, unhurried, all that strength contained. She drew a slow circle that brought her head outside the ladder's reach, and stilled. The calf bumped the rung once more, trembled, and rested its chin on the lowest bar. Evan felt fear settling into something sharper and cleaner. "All right," he told the dawn, the fog, the eye he could no longer see. "All right, I'm here." Evan stood with the dock under his boots and the rules rattling in his ribs. Back away, close the door. Call someone else. The calf shivered against the ladder and slipped. The mother drew another patient circle like a compass, testing the edge of his world. He set the lantern down and made the space safe. He shouldered the cooler aside, kicked a stray coil into a neat ring, slid a rusted crate under the bench. He fetched clean towels from the boathouse and spread them near the ladder, leaving the last foot of plank bare. He filled a bucket and set it within reach. He stripped off his jacket, rolled his sleeves, checked the distance from his knees to the rung. No bravado, just reach. "Not a threat," he said softly, hands open. "Not a rescue without your leave either." The mother's head rose on a swell and the eye found him again. It held, not predator, not prey. A boundary crossed and offered. Evan felt his heart separate into beats he could count. He let the counting slow him, 1 for the breath rising, 2 for the breath falling, 3 for the steam fading in the new light. Every second stretched like rope in rain. He crouched. The dock chilled his kneecaps. The towels drank the lantern's glow. He extended one arm slowly and stopped before the water could lick his wrist. "If you're asking," he whispered, "I'm answering." Silence made a room around the words. The buoy bell chose not to speak. The calf's jaw trembled against the rung. Evan looked to the mother and did not hide what his face carried. "I will be careful," he told her. "I will be small." His palm hovered over the ladder's lowest bar, air quivering there. It was not courage he felt, but consent, the willingness to be bound by another being's need. He knelt. "All right," he said, "we begin." He slid closer, the lantern pooling a warm ellipse that cut the fog into a small room. The world beyond it fell away. Inside there was only dock, water, calf, breath. Evan dipped the bucket, lifted its weight, and let a slow sheet spill over the calf's skin. The little body shivered, muscles fluttering under black and white. He kept the paw steady, careful to leave the blowhole clear. "Easy now," he said, voice low. "You breathe. I'll handle the rest." The mother moved just outside the light's edge, a patient orbit traced by faint phosphorescence. Each pass wrote a broken ring that faded and was written again. She did not rush, did not rasp the fenders. She watched, a sentry with a clock. Evan stripped sound from the scene. He nudged the metal hook away from the ladder so it wouldn't clack. He set his mug on rope instead of wood. He turned the lantern wick down a notch, let the light soften. He wet a towel, folded it, and laid it where the calf's flank met the rung so bone wouldn't bruise on iron. He reached for the VHF and thumbed the mic. Harbour Officer James, North Arm Dock, emergency. I have an Orca calf at the ladder, mother in attendance. Calf is exhausted but breathing. Static, then a voice accustomed to weather. Copy, North Arm. Are you safe to disengage? Negative. I'm maintaining minimal contact. Mother is holding a perimeter. This looks like entrusting. A breath's beat of silence. Patch you to Dr. Mora. Stand by. Another click.
A woman's calm cut through the fog. This is Dr. Lena Mora. I'm en route. Keep the blowhole fully unobstructed. Keep skin wet. No pressure on the fins or jaw. Reduce noise and motion. If the calf slips, support gently under the chest, not the throat. Understood, Evan said. He set the radio down on his jacket so it wouldn't rattle. He cupped water with his hand now, slower, closer, counting. In, out, in. Stay with me, he murmured. You're doing fine. The calf blinked. Air lifted, fell. The mother's shadow crossed the circle again, patient as a tide, choosing its hour. Evan, Lena said, still in his ear. You're buying time?
That's the whole job. I can do time, he answered. I can do quiet, right now. He worked in that narrow glow, breath aligning with breath, fear pared down to task after task, a single line held taut between three lives. The skiff's bow light slipped through the fog like a low star, then clicked off as it nosed the float. A woman rose from the stern with a coil of line already in her hand, tied twice, and stepped onto the dock with the quiet certainty of someone who had learned to move without waking pain. Lena Mora, she said, meeting Evan's eyes once, the mother's orbit second. You've done well. Keep doing it. Her bag opened without fuss. Stethoscope, soft slings, a blunt hook to ease a rope, a notebook sealed against weather. No clatter, only placement. She knelt near the ladder and paused, listening with everything. The calf's breaths, the dock's clicks, the rhythm of the mother's passes. The fog thinned, then gathered again. Keep clear of the blowhole, she murmured. Steady the head, let me listen. Evan steadied what he could. A towel where bone met iron, a hand on the rung, a voice thin as mist. You're all right, little one. We're here. The calf lay partly in water, partly on wood, a creature straddling two worlds and losing balance in both. Its chin rested on the lowest bar, a tremor fluttered down its jaw. Lena leaned close, no touch at first, taking the measure of distress like a mariner reading weather. Good positioning, she said. We'll keep it this way, small corrections only. Beyond the light, the mother surfaced, turned, and rolled just enough to show an eye. It held the human figures, reflected lantern and fog in a single dark coin, then slipped away. No rush, no jaw display, no slap of tail, only a disciplined perimeter, as constant as a heartbeat. Tell me what you've done, Lena said. Wet the skin?
Kept the blowhole clear, called you, stayed quiet, Evan answered. He nodded toward the ring of luminous wakes. Brought the calf, and she's been waiting. Good, Lena said, approving the ordinary heroism of not panicking. Let's hear her. She cupped one ear near the calf's flank, angled her lamp once, and listened to the fragile machinery of breath working against fatigue. Okay, support under the chest when I lift a moment, not the throat. Ready. They moved together as if they had practiced all week. The calf slid a hand's width, found the rung again, and held. Lena's fingers hovered,
then settled with the lightest pressure near the jaw hinge to guide the angle of air. "There," she said. "That's easier." Evan felt his shoulders unclench, some inner coil loosening under the authority of skill. "I didn't know if stepping in was the right thing." "It was the necessary thing," Lena replied. "Sometimes the work is buying minutes. Minutes add up." Another pass from the mother. She lifted half an eye again, a slow, unblinking semaphore. Evan met it, and for the first time since the first exhalation, felt something like permission. "We're with you," he told the water. "We'll keep her breathing." "Hold that," Lena said gently. "And let me listen." The dock breathed with them, and the bay, and the circling mother who never crossed the line yet, never left it. Fog held to the timbered slopes as if stitched there by wet thread. Lantern wicks were turned down until the dock lived in a hush of amber, a floating room with no walls. Beyond its ellipse, the bay was a breathing dark, ruffled here and there by rings of cold fire tracing the mother's circle like constellations that refused to fix. Time lengthened. The sounds that survived were small and exact, a rope's wet groan, a single drip striking plank, the calf's faint breaths counting out a private hourglass. Evan soaked a sponge, squeezed once, and drew water along the calf's flank in patient strokes, careful as a scribe preserving a line. "You stay with us," he said. "Breathe, little one, breathe." On the VHF, James kept his voice to thread. "North arm, status." "Breathing shallow, steady for now," Evan whispered. "Mother circling, no aggression." "Copy. We're clear on channels. You call on any change." Lena charted vitals with a pencil stub, and the caution of someone who knew the weight of each mark. She listened, timed, adjusted nothing that did not need adjusting. "Keep clear of the blowhole," she reminded softly. Ritual, more than instruction. "We're buying minutes. Minutes become hours." The tide turned with the gentlest of lurches, sliding the dock half an inch. Phosphorescence answered, with a brighter flare, as the mother passed. She surfaced, rolled an eye to the glow, and sank again, perimeter intact, devotion distilled into geometry. In that broad mind, there were no words, only the single imperative to hold the ring. "Let me hear her," Lena said. Evan steadied the jaw angle with 2 fingers under the bar. Lena leaned close, eyes half closed, and listened to the fragile machinery continue. "Good. Stay with that." The foghorn on the point spoke once, long and distant, like an elder offering a rule. The calf shivered, the sponge returned, warm water for muscle, cool water for skin. Evan's back ached, and he let it, not bargaining with his body for comfort. "I've got you," he murmured. "We've got you." Hours feathered past. The lantern's halo shrank. James checked in and receded. The pencil made its small, stubborn scratches. When the calf slipped a hand's width down the rung, Evan supported under the chest, breath held, then released, when breath continued. He glanced toward the circling dark. "She trusts us," he said. "She's out of choices," Lena answered, calm and clear, "and trust is what remains." The mother widened her loop, then narrowed it again, a compass reading the quiet. Under the dock, stars moved in water where no sky could keep them. The tide reached slack. For a full minute, the world forgot to change, and everyone present listened to a life refused to go out. Evan blinked grit from his eyes and counted breaths again, slow and careful, as fog thinned toward grey light. Mist lifted in ragged veils as the first sun struck the bay, turning each droplet into a shaken necklace of fire. The mother rose beyond the dock and tracked along the light. Her dorsal fin cut a clean seam through the gold, a blade of morning writing the horizon. Evan felt the dock's chill in his knees, and with it, a tremor that wasn't fear anymore. He leaned in. The calf's breaths were still shallow, but there was pattern now. Small, even pairs instead of scattered scraps. A flutter of lashes, then a blink, deliberate as a door opening. "There you are," he whispered. "Take what you need." Lena watched the ribs move under the wet skin, counted quietly, then nodded once. "Improving, don't change a thing." The calf made a sound so thin it might have been a thought finding air, a soft, reedy churr that hung above the ladder and vanished in steam. Evan, startled, laughed under his breath. "Did you hear that?" "I did," Lena said. "That's a yes." Out past the lantern's dying circle, the mother held still, suspended in the brightening water like a carved figure on the prow of a myth. She did not circle. She did not press. She simply watched the doorway of light open between dock and bay and allowed it to widen. The VHF hissed, James a distant presence. "Status?" "Alive," Evan answered, eyes on the blink that came again. "Breathing stronger, we have voice." "Copy, North Arm," James said, and let the air go.
Evan drew a long breath without counting. He didn't say victory, he didn't invite luck. He just placed a wet palm on the towel to steady himself and told the calf softly, "Stay with the day, it's here now." The bay, listening, offered back one quiet breath. By mid-morning the fog had burned to ribbons. Sun found the dock and lifted a clean shine from every wet board. Lena studied the calf's pattern one more time, then looked to the skiff and the stack of gear she had brought. "We need imaging and a quiet pen," she said. "The cove's close. Slow is smooth. Smooth is safe." They assembled a soft sling.
Webbing that would cradle rather than pinch, lines padded where they met the ladder. "Keep the blowhole clear," Lena reminded. Evan nodded, feeling the tide of nerves climb and break against a firmer thought. Do the next right thing. Together they eased the sling under the calf's chest a hand's width, letting water help with the lift. The calf shuddered, gave one small sound, then settled. James crackled on the VHF. "Channel's clear to the rehab cove. You'll have eyes on the pen in 8 minutes. At this pace—" "Copy," Lena answered. "We'll maintain minimal wake." Thresholds declared themselves. The lantern was doused. The boathouse door stood open behind them like an unspoken promise, and the long plank of the dock ended where the skiff's rubber berth kissed water. "We're leaving the porch," Evan said, half to the mother, half to the bay. "We'll bring her home to you." They slid the ladder free, eased the sling to the skiff's stern cleat, and took the lightest strain. The calf rode balanced, chin above the plane, guarded by Lena's hands and Evan's throttle. The mother rose at 3 meters, drew a level line beside them, and matched speed. Forest mirrored on the bay's green skin. Schools of baitfish made quicksilver paragraphs that rewrote themselves as the hull passed. "Steady head," Lena said. "Keep her angle shallow." Evan answered with touch, not talk, nursing the engine until the wake dwindled to a whisper. When a stray swell shouldered in from the main channel, the sling dipped, his stomach dropped. "I've got you," he said, more prayer than sentence. The mother surfaced at 5 meters, exhaling, as if to mark the moment, then sank again to her guard. They rounded the point into the rehab cove, a crescent of water banded by furs and net lines. 2 volunteers stood ready at the sea pen gate, their voices low. "Gate open on your mark," one called. "Mark," Lena said, never lifting her hands. "Evan, breathe with her. Small corrections." Midday light laid a bright path ahead. The cove showed its depth in clear jade, the world beneath them as legible as a chart. Evan eased the skiff into alignment. The sling slid forward over the threshold. The calf gave a weary churr and answered with a stronger breath. "Welcome across," Evan whispered. "Now." The gate clicked behind them, the net soft as a held breath. The bay outside kept its own counsel. The mother's fin traced one last line along the fence, then paced the pen at distance, steady as a compass reading home. Work light snapped on and scissored the cove into planes of glare and shadow. The sea pen's catwalk became an operating room, boards oiled by years of salt, ringed by ropes and patient hands. Green water glowed under the net like glass lit from within. In the sling, the calf floated in a cradle of webbing and careful palms. Lena stood where light met water and let the scene settle before she touched anything. "Quiet voices, nothing sudden," she said, and the volunteers matched her tone at once. "Evan, you're the anchor. Keep that hand steady at the jawline. She'll drift to you if she can." He nodded and did not test the instruction with words. The calf wavered, found his hand and stilled as if the skin of that palm were harbour. Through the mesh, the mother's dorsal fin cut a dark arc, keeping pace at distance, present the way a mountain is present, immovable, containing. Imaging came first, not as ritual but as listening with light. A portable unit skimmed the surface. Lena's focus narrowed, then lifted. "We have what we need," she said, "no care and time." No heroics, only patience and precision. They moved in a small choreography. One lifted a corner of sling to ease pressure. One passed clean gauze, one kept the pen free of snags. Wound edges were washed of grit. Medicine followed like a promise you speak only once and then keep. "Keep clear of the blowhole," Lena reminded, though everyone already was. She checked reflexes, counted breaths without glancing at the watch, and nodded when the numbers formed a steadier line. "Talk to her," she told Evan, not for superstition, but for rhythm. "You're doing fine," he said, voice low. "Sure." "Hold the water, we'll hold the rest." The calf's eye lifted and found him again, dark, glossed with work light, reflective enough to hold the dock, the ropes, the faces. A single bubble slipped from the corner of her mouth and burst against the sling. Outside the net, the mother rolled once, showing white that flashed green in the lit water, then settled back into her measured patrol. "Breath depth improving," Lena said. "We're past the worst moment." The dock exhaled as if it too had lungs. Motion slowed from urgent to exact. Gauze disappeared. The unit was capped. A blanket of warmth went where chill had taken hold. "Stabilized," Lena concluded, the word soft but decisive. "We hold this course and let her body choose the rest." Rain came in a thin sheet as Evan nosed the skiff back to the dock. But the light had flattened into pewter. Every nail head wore a halo. He tied off, stepped up, and found the place as he had left it. Lantern cold, towels dark with memory, the boathouse door ajar to damp. He listened for the breath that had announced everything. The bay answered with small chops against the pilings, then nothing. No fin cut the grey. The rubber fenders hung idle, their scuffed faces blind. The space where the calf had clung to the ladder felt newly large, as if the dock had exhaled and not filled its lungs again. A hollow moved through him with the rain. He stood where the mother had circled and tried to name what absence meant. "Did you leave?" he asked the water, low enough that the question would not carry. A single drop fell from the eave and struck the plank like a clock with only one hand. He could have read it as retreat, as the wild reclaiming its distance. Instead, he let the minutes teach a slower grammar. The calf was warm in the pen, stabilized under human lights. The mother had not breached the net, had not shattered the fragile machinery of care. She had come to a line and chosen to stop. He felt the shape of that choice like a weight set gently in his palms. "You didn't abandon her," he said, at last. "You entrusted her. You set her on the step and walked back into the world that keeps you fierce." He waited, and the bay kept its counsel. He closed a hand on the ladder rung. "The door stays open," he promised. "I'll hold the hours you gave me." The rain brightened, then thinned. Far down the inlet, a breath lifted and blurred. Maybe wind, maybe not. Evan stood at the threshold, patient now, learning to keep watch without a figure to watch for. Weeks settled into a working tide, each day opening and closing the pen like a lung. Morning came in narrow shafts of sun on the catwalk. Gulls argued, fell quiet as routine began. Under green clarity the calf floated steady, breaths pairing cleanly, inhale, exhale, a measured duet. Hands stayed back unless needed, poles delivered food, slings adjusted, voices low. They named her Lumen because the night told on her. When stars hid behind cloud, the bay made its own constellations, and her strokes wrote cursive fire along the mesh, loops, commas, a bright flourish when she turned, and the water answered. "No petting, no cooing," Lena reminded. "Hold the line. She needs the sea, not us." From the catwalk, Evan stood watch, present, restrained. "I'll be here," he said to the dark.
"But I won't teach you to love me." Early swims were brief, then briefer still, not to chase exhaustion, but to coax stamina back. Lumen pushed water with careful strokes, rested, tried again. A sliver of kelp drifted across her path. She veered, inspected, dismissed. When a herring flashed near the net, she pivoted with a cleaner edge than any day before, curiosity sharpening into intent. She gave a soft, rising call, tentative as a first word. From beyond the pen came an answering breath, far. Feeding support shifted with her strength. At first, fish tipped from a pole, easy, precise, medical. Later, volunteers released a scatter in the pen.
Silver bodies stitched brightness through the jade. Lumen tracked one, lost it, then corrected. "Let her earn it," Lena said. "We are the floor, not the sky." Charts learned to smooth themselves. Where jagged lines had haunted the axes, gentle curves replaced them. Breaths per minute, heart effort, recovery times. Evan watched from distance at daybreak, while sunlight climbed the fir trunks. Lumen surfaced in the bands of light, rolled, and slipped under. "There you go," he whispered to the open air. A storm borrowed the bay one night and paid it back in glow. Rain stung the pen. Every strike awakened the plankton into a fever of light. Lumen carved spirals that hung like diagrams of resolve. She voiced again, longer now, confident, and from the cove mouth came a lone blow, patient, placed. Evan's grip tightened on the rail. "She's listening." Lena nodded. "So is someone else." Strength layered by increments. The scar along her flank sealed to a pale seam. She learned to turn hard without touching the net, to stop on a dime, to match the pen's chop with steadier balance. "Alert and oriented," Lena said, satisfaction tucked into the clinical. "Curious, responsive." Evan allowed a whisper of forecast. "And nearly ready to leave us." A log drifted in on a complicating tide. The volunteers eased it away, then left a smaller branch. Lumen nudged and yielded, tested pressure, learned the difference between obstacle and hazard. On slack afternoons, she paced the shadow line, then crossed it, a predator's geometry returning, angles tightening, pauses tuned to purpose. Evan logged times, feeds, distances, the way a man might tally thank yous he won't say. The harbour crew shared coffee and practiced discipline of hope. "We kept the door open," he said once. She found the way. Most nights ended with the pen dark, except for her handwriting on the water. Lumen would sound, wait, and listen. Sometimes the answer came, a far exhale where the bay widened. When it did, she stilled, then moved with a clearer vector, as if reminded of a map older than memory. In those moments, pride did not swell so much as settle, quiet, rightful, the feeling of a hinge finding its seat. Slack tide arrived like a held breath. Sunset poured along the cove, turning the water to glass, gold into blue. Volunteers stood back from the rail. The catwalk hushed. Lena checked the line of the gate and nodded once. "Now," she said, the word gentle as a palm. The winch whispered. Net and door parted, making a clean mouth in the water. Lumen hovered just inside the threshold, white patches dimming and brightening as she turned. Evan kept to the far side of the catwalk, hands low, voice lower. "Go on," he breathed. "Find your water." For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Lumen leaned into the opening, gliding so slowly the surface did not know to break. Beyond the net, an adult shape resolved, shadow becoming form, form becoming certainty. The mother, holding the corridor like a pillar. Lumen nosed the last strand and crossed. The gate seam closed behind her with a soft clink, more suggestion than sound. In the open, the mother rose, eyes surfacing close enough to catch the sky. She looked toward the catwalk, held that gaze, and then, deliberate as dawn, closed and opened the dark lid once. Evan exhaled, almost laughing. "I saw it," he whispered. Lena did not smile. Her eyes softened. "We were seen." Mother and calf turned together. For 3 strokes their tails wrote twin flares of phosphorescence, signatures that brightened, then unwrote as the bay deepened to blue. No flourish, no leap. Just direction reclaimed. "Safe water," Evan said to the widening evening. "Carry her home." The cove accepted its emptiness with grace. Nets settled, ropes stilled. Above the blackening surface, the air kept the imprint of a breath, and the hinge quiet of a door that had been opened and, rightly, left ajar. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story touched your heart even a little, that's our greatest joy. If you'd like, please share your thoughts in the comments. We'll keep bringing you stories that stay with you, so please consider subscribing to the channel. See you in the next video.